Hey there, everyone. It's Kelly from Kelly's Astrology here. I have got a question that I received in an online Q&A forum recently that I didn't get time to answer there, and I promised I would answer here. This question is about how to handle out of sign aspects. So I'm going to share a little bit about my own thoughts about how I would work with this type of configuration, and I'll leave that to you to, see how that fits and whether you want to change the way you're working with things, or maybe it just helps you understand what's going on when two planets might be in what we call an out of sign configuration. I work with astrology students all the time. I offer an 18-month online astrology training program. I also have a monthly astrology membership, which will help you time your life with astrology. So if you're looking to get more astrology into your life, pop over to my website, kellysastrology.com, and have a look at the classes and membership offerings there. If you just like hanging out here together on YouTube, that's totally okay too. Hit the subscribe button so you can be sure to get notified of any new videos. So this is a video that I'm kind of recording in real time. I'm recording this, it's mid-October 2022, almost mid-October. How are you going with all the astrology so far? I know we've got this big Mars square Neptune aspect happening. And of course, later this month, we're going to have Mars retrograde in Gemini. And I've got another video here on YouTube about self-care tips for Mars retrograde in Gemini. So be sure to check that one out. So heading into this question that I received, I'll read the question out and then I'll talk about my answer. The question says, hey, so let's say natally someone has Mars in Gemini at 1 degree and Saturn at 28 degrees of Aquarius. So this would be a sign-based trine, but a degree-based square. My question would be on how do you go about delineating those cases? Does the sign-based aspect give the square more ease? Thank you in advance, by the way. My pleasure. I'm happy to answer your question. It's a question that I get a lot from students in my astrology training program, so I'm more than happy to respond. So I always like to write things down. So we've got Mars at 1 Gemini and Saturn at 28 Aquarius. So both these planets are in air signs, and the combination of aspect between planets in air signs is a trine. So from the more traditional older styles of astrology, we would call this a sign-based trine, and we'd probably leave it at that. It's not a degree-based trine aspect because Mars in early Gemini doesn't actually directly aspect by degree Saturn at 28 Aquarius. Maybe you have Mars here and Saturn's up here. So they're not connecting each other by degree, but because they're placed in signs of the same element, the kind of feeling between these two planets is more informed by that trine aspect. If you were to run a chart with this aspect through a software program, an astrology software program, it might show up on a list of degree-based aspects as a square. Saturn at 28 degrees Aquarius, Mars at 1 degree of Gemini. They're only about 3 degrees away from a degree-based square. So if that Saturn was at 1 degree Pisces, it would be squaring that Mars at 1 degree Gemini, but the Saturn is back a little bit. And so to kind of make a decision, if you like, about whether you'd call this aspect a square or go with it as a trine, you have to decide whether you're going to focus on planetary interplay that is degree-based or that is sign-based, or perhaps that's a combination of the both. If we just go with the degree-based, then we'd be looking at a square aspect that was a few degrees away from being exact. And perhaps early in my career, I might have looked at that. But as my understanding of astrology grew, and that happened over many, many years, mostly by going back into the history of astrology. So looking back at further periods in time and some of the different techniques that astrologers used. And when I did that, I learned that some of the underlying themes and qualities to do with aspects have to do with the sign-based connections that planets in those signs make. And even though Saturn at the tail end of Aquarius is close to squaring Mars by degree, there's more of a friendly connection between these two planets because they're in signs of the same element. So they're motivated by similar kinds of interests, almost like they're willing to collaborate because they're both interested in planets in air signs. You might know from what's going on in the sky right now in October of 2022, we've got a number of planets in air signs. So in a chart like this with Saturn late in Aquarius, Mars in early Gemini, we'd have lots of mental stimulation, lots of mind focus, lots of learning and ideas and thinking and perhaps ruminating, but maybe also that curiosity as well. Needless to say, we'd be in our head a lot. If that Saturn was in Pisces and squaring Gemini, because Pisces and Gemini are signs that square, then we would have a little bit more of that classic friction and tension between those two planets. Even though Gemini and Pisces would be signs of the same modality, they're both mutable. They're very different kinds of elements. Obviously, Pisces being water and Gemini being air. They would be kind of at odds with each other. They'd have different priorities and different ways of doing things. So my personal take on an aspect that would have Mars at 1 Gemini and Saturn at 28 Aquarius, I would delineate this as a sign-based trine aspect, which is not as strong or as impactful or as obvious in the life as a degree-based trine aspect. So I would understand that, but I would understand these two planets would be a little bit more friendly to each other than anything else. And it's not anywhere near as dramatic as a square would be between a planet in Pisces and Gemini, or if we stay with, the Saturn in Aquarius, if that Mars was back in Taurus, that would be much more of a dramatic square type of aspect. So sometimes for understanding, we need those contrasting perspectives that a degree-based aspect that isn't kind of anchored in signs forming that same pattern is not going to be as strong as if the Saturn was in Pisces and the Mars in Gemini, or the Mars in Taurus with the Saturn in Aquarius. So the strongest kind of square aspect is by degree and by sign configuration, and the best kind of trine aspect will be by both degree and sign configuration. But we do have some of these nuances in between those clear definitions. So I'm hoping this is giving you a little bit of info or a little bit of ways to think about it and not confusing things more. But if you need more clarification, or if you've got more questions about aspects and things like that in the birth chart, please let me know in the comments and I will keep them in mind for future aspects. So thank you for this question. So it is a sign-based trine, but a degree-based square. I tend to favor the sign-based aspect configuration, so I would lean to that direction. But knowing that the trine, when it's by sign without the degree connection, is not as strong or as fruitful as it might be otherwise. There are a couple of exceptions to this rule in terms of planets that might be in the combustion state, but that's a topic for another video in the future. So that's it from me today, team. I hope you're keeping well. As always, I love to keep up with your news and adventures in astrology via the comments below. And if you're looking for more astrology more of the time, pop over to my website, kellysastrology.com. I look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.